It's good day to brew, baby. What is up, YouTube? It's your boy Millsy. Hometown Commander back for another episode of Millsy Brews, the show where I version 1.0 deck list of the commander in front of us on my quest to brew the magic world. You know the motto, baby. It's ABB, always be brewing, and that's what we're back to do today. The deck list is going to be down in the description for you below. As I really appreciate it if you could interact with the video, like, comment, subscribe, consider checking out the links in the description. I'd appreciate it. But today we're continuing through Aether Drift, and Samut is back as Samut the Driving Force, a 6-mana 4/5 human warrior cleric with first strike, vigilance, and haste, getting that type line back. Start your engines. So the turn she comes in, you're going to start your engines, including that turn. As long as our opponent's lost life the turn, you're going to go up your speed to a max speed of 4. And two interesting abilities. Other creatures get +X+0, where X is your speed, and non-creature spells you cast cost X less to cast, where X is your speed. I think Samut's a ton of fun, and I think there's a lot of ways to build Samut. It was actually Covert Go Blue in one of their commander decks, or commander gameplays. They had the same exact idea I had the first time I read Samut, which was make a ton of tokens and go wide and have that +X+0 hit your board. The reason I thought that was because my Jetmir deck, which was just on the channel last week, is a deck that cares about using X spells to make tokens. Well, when you're making non-creature spells cost X less to cast, where X is your speed, you're going to make them even cheaper and get more tokens out of them, right, to allow you to get more value. So what we're going to try to do, we're going to go wide with tokens as we increase our speed, getting up to max speed, allowing them to be hopefully big and deal some damage. And then we're going to try to use all of the great pieces we have access to in Naya colors to turn our wide board state into big damage. All right, how are we going to make tokens? The answer in Naya is you can pretty much throw a rock and hit a token maker these days. There's so many ways to do it. Obviously, we want to make sure want to, if possible, do it on a way that we're going to be attacking, so that we can increase our speed, right? But there's a lot of ways to do it. Elspeth can make 3 of them on her +1, and her -7 can actually get you an emblem to get them all in the air with flying. Both Adeline and an Impicall are both going to make you tokens in different ways whenever you attack, and can allow you to hit everybody with a token, hopefully. Again, all you need is one person to lose life to up your speed, but can give you more chances to do it. House Squad we can also start our engines, and I think starting our engines before Samut comes down is important if possible, although I think Samut's going to do a great job of getting our speed up pretty quickly once it gets down with how we're going to build our board state. But House Squad Heavy is going to give all of our goblins haste. Beginning of our turn, we get a goblin, and then when we get up to max speed, you can actually tap for a red mana for each goblin we control. Pairs really well with other creatures in the deck like Krenko beside it. That whenever it attacks, you put a counter on it and make goblins equal to its power. Again, great in the early game as a way to start going wide and get tokens on the board to really threaten our opponents, but great once Samut's out because you can just make a ton of goblins that way. But again, it's the X generation spells that I think become really good with Samut. And there's a lot of approaches to it. For the common good, lets you create tokens that are a copy of another token you already control. They get an indestructible on a turn and you gain a life, which is really great with allowing you to take a big attack that turn and not have to worry about your tokens getting chump blocked. Things like Fourth Orlingas can have tokens come in that get to attack this turn with Trample and Haste, a great way to turn that reduction into damage. Because with Samut out, if we are at max speed, I mean, you're talking about 6/2 knights that come in right with Trample and Haste, which is pretty great. Goblin Negotiation can deal X damage to a creature, and you get goblins equal to the excess damage dealt this way. Again, a great way to take out a key creature and still get tokens for it. Pest Infestation is going to target artifacts and enchantments and make you a bunch of pests for it, allowing you to get tokens that way. Song of Totentans and Temple of Vengeance both makes 1/1s that can attack this turn, which is really useful. I actually really like Song of Totentans because it actually gives all your creatures haste, which is a very beneficial ability, especially if Totentans is the last thing you play in turn. Grand Crescendo can give all your creatures indestructible, can also make tokens as well. So Samut can basically turn this into a double white spell that makes you 4 tokens and gives your whole creature, whole board indestructible at max speed, which is pretty cool. Secure the Waste could be a 1 mana spell that just makes you 4 1/1s and more than that if you have more mana. Same thing with White Sun Zenith on getting at least 4. But a spell I really like and is going to be really helpful when Samut gives that buff is March of the Multitude. So it has Convoke, so your creatures can tap to help you cast it. And you're making a bunch of 1/1 soldiers with lifelink, with that potential +4/+0 buff, right? Now you're looking at gaining a ton of life back. Horn of Valhalla has an X spell on it to make you tokens and can buff somebody like Samut for the amount of creatures you have. Dollmaker's Shop's making you creatures every time you attack, and then Porcelain Gallery can make your creatures huge. And then Rabble Rousing actually makes a bunch of tokens whenever you attack with more than one creature, allowing you to just continue to get your board state rate wider and wider and wider as you get in for damage. But I think we pair the tokens with damaging our opponents as creatures come in. This is another good way to get your speed up right away. Now, if you get Samut down and need a way to start getting your speed up, this can do it, although Samut can also do it in combat. But what this will also do is if we start getting into our token generation, we're going to start damaging out our opponents. Impact Tremors and War Leader's Call both deal damage to each opponent every time one of our creatures comes in. Perforos actually gets to deal 2 to each opponent every time a creature comes in. And this can be a nice way in the mid to late game to just buffer out some damage on our opponents as we prep up for those big combats. But I think where we really take the deck from a pile of tokens to a threat is getting creatures in that are going to allow us to hit harder. Champion of Lambhole says that creatures of power less than it can't block creatures we control, and whenever another creature comes in, it gets to grow, making effectively our tokens unblockable at some point. Jetmir, one of my favorite commanders that we talked about before, can come in and give our creatures Vigilance, Double Strike, and Hate and Trample, making them huge threats. With Samut and Jetmir out, you're looking at +7/+0 at max speed with a bunch of those abilities. Sovereign Akaneka Howl says whenever it attacks, for each creature you control with power greater than its base power, it gets that many +1/+1 counters. So with it in Samut outright, all your creatures are getting, plus X, +1/+1 counters, where X is, your speed, right? Eldrazi Monument can get all your creatures in the air and give them indestructible to make them real threats. Beastmaster Ascension, right, once you attack 7 times, can give your whole board +5/+5, and Shared Animosity buffs them for each creature that shares a type with it that it's attacking. Again, just classic ways to turn a board of tokens into big damage to your opponents. The truth is, it's a lot more. It's a lot, honestly, not very complex to that. You start your engines as soon as you can, preferably before Samut comes down. If not, you do it when Samut comes down and can start attacking, get to max speed, and just use it to leverage to your advantage. Remember that if Samut dies, you keep your max speed where it is. So the nice part is, let's say you bring Samut in and it dies and you have to replay it for 8 mana. Well, the turner comes in for 8 mana, you're giving all those buffs right away. But I mean, I said it before on the show, and I'll say it again. No deck's ever complete. This is my version 1.0 shot at Samut. And I think there's a lot we can learn in testing, which is, do we have the pieces we need? Can we get engines started and get it at max speed quickly? Is Samut going to give us enough of a buff? I think this deck kind of runs between a 2 and a 3 on the bracket scale and what it could accomplish. I think it could punch down to a precon's level because it's such a linear ability on our commander. I think we could put in some extra cards to punch up into the 3 level. But if I were to extend my budget, I think I'd be looking at things like a Chroma's Memorial to really make my creatures even harder to deal with. Things like Awaken the Woods can make tokens that are also lands, right, to allow us to have access to just more mana as well. And then you have things like Enduring Vitality that can have your creatures tap for mana. This is something that's really beneficial for a lot of token decks to allow your tokens to count for mana as well. And we're playing one or two of them in the deck, but the truth is we could get deeper into it, right, for even more value. But let's get into our playtest. Remember, the goal for playtest on the channel is not to find Magical Christmas Land. It's not to determine what the best things our decks can do. It's to run through our opening turns, try to figure out our play lines, and understand how our deck works and functions together. Here we're keeping a 1, 2, 3, 4-lander with a Murraganda Raceway, which could start our engines early. I believe we're playing all 3 raceways, so that way, if possible, right, we can get those engines started before Samut comes in. Arcane Signet, Dollmaker's Shop, and Balin, another great support piece, which can use tokens to tap for mana and use tokens to draw us cards. So turn 1, I think it's pretty obviously the Raceway, just to get the speed started. The speed doesn't have a token, so we'll just use this infinite token. Turn 2, I think we just get sing it down, right? Start growing ourselves our way up. So here we're at 4 mana. Of course, a little bit off of Samut. We want to do things, I think, that are just going to lead us to more damage. I like the idea of Krenko, right? So we can attack next turn and get the process started there. Here we're at 5. I'm kind of thinking Dollmaker's Shop. Maybe plus Balin, because then I can use the goblins for big effect. Go to combat, have Krenko attack. It's going to get a counter. It's going to make me 2 goblins, and then it's going to make me a toy off of the Dollmaker's Shop. I can immediately use 3 of those with Balin to draw me a card, which could be pretty useful, but that's going to up my speed, and I think I would do it to draw. Now turn 5, we have enough for Samut, but we're only at 2 on this scale. So I think because Samut comes in with haste, I kind of like the idea of the Akaneka Howl this turn instead. Because now when these guys attack, Krenko is going to get a buff. These guys won't just yet, but I think it's still worth attacking, right? Or next turn, right, when Samut comes in, they'll all have that buff when they attack. So that was 4. Get the Swift Boots in just to protect Samut. And then I'd go to attack with Krenko, get a counter, make 3 more goblins. Again, one of the goblins can attack. Each of the goblins can attack a player. Again, the goal there is just to net me more toys, right? So then that way I have more things to tap. I'm drawing 2 cards there off of Balin. I think there's probably a good chance we get in for some damage here this turn. I'd probably just draw with Balin on those 2. And then come back to our turn. Now we're at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 mana. Of course, I'd love a world where we could get to max speed, but we're just not there yet. There's 2 routes we can go. I can Samut, attack, and all my creatures in and get +3/+0 because of the Samut, and then 3 counters with Sovereign. Or I can spend this turn activating Porcelain Gallery, turning all of my creatures into 12/12s, and then they're going to get... that'll be their base, but there'll be 12/12s, right, attacking our opponents, and we're going to get actually more because we're going to make 12 goblins, turning them all into 24/24s and just having a huge combat. Or we bring Samut in, they all get +3/+0, go to combat, they all get 3 counters, making them a little bit bigger, but we would be able to get, max speed in the turn. I think the Porcelain Gallery makes more sense in this instance, but I can understand why you'd want to play Samut. But this just goes to show you why this token game plan is so good and why I think it's a nice support. Not a support strategy, but a strategy for Samut. Playtest number 2, we keep in a 4-lander with Kutzel, Adeline, and Champion. Adeline and Champion is a great way to grow an unblockable board. So we're working our way up. I think the only way this gets better is by finding a way to start our engines sooner rather than later, right? I think I want to go for Adeline first here, because Champion doesn't have to attack in order for it to get its unblockability. There's the Howl Squad to start our engines, and this is huge. I think we do that right away over my idea of playing that, because this turn Adeline attacks, making a 1/1 human, attacking everybody. And I have a feeling that at least one of these has to get through it. You also get that 1/1 goblin off the Howl Squad. I mean, they probably at least all of them but one probably die, I would imagine. But you'd still at least get that damage in to keep the engines going up. Now on turn 5, we're down to mana, which is kind of a bummer. We do a way to potentially get right back up there with the Howl Squad heavy. I mean, I love the idea of Kutzel just to draw some cards. But I don't have that buff quite yet to draw us the cards with Kutzel, right? Because Adeline's base power is star, so she's not getting the buff, right? And neither is Howl Squad heavy. So it's not like Kutzel will draw us a card this turn. Champion is basically probably just going to guarantee us damage this turn, right? 3 tokens come in, the Goblin comes in, so we're almost guaranteed for our speed to go up this turn, right? And then that's 4 counters on Champion, just getting good, right? Good key damage in here this turn. We could always attack with the heavy as well. So now our problem's still becoming, we're like 2 mana off of Samut. But I guess we could attack and then we would have enough goblins with House Squad Heavy to potentially tap to play it in, right? I think that might make the most sense. Go to combat, attack with all of these guys. Another goblin, another humans. We get up to 8 counters on the lamb hole. Just take a big attack with everybody but the heavy, and then the heavy can tap to bring Samut in, right? And we are at max speed because we got it this turn. And now, things are getting even cheaper, so that on our turn, we can just write the board. And this is almost a near perfect draw because this Porcelain Gallery comes down for 2 mana, and now, our opponents are just in rough shape. Otherwise, I think I probably would have held up something like the Flare just in case to protect our board, right? We could get Kutzel down here and just attack in, net a ton of damage, a ton of cards here, card draw, and then just hold the Flare up for protection. And I mean, we're in great shape, at least for that playtest. Let's get into playtest number 3, keeping a 2/3-lander with Rampant Growth, Temp with Bunnies, a way to draw some cards and make some tokens, the Flare for protection, and then Kickoff Celebrations, a way to start our engines a little bit early. Comes in, pitch a card, draw 2. We could stack it at max speed to give out haste. There's the old Samut, or one of the old Samuts, a great way to give all of our other creatures haste, right, to really allow us to get some good damage. And here I think it's just the Rampant Growth. Second planes here. Again, the thought there is just to keep ramping right on our way up. Here I think we're close to getting Samut down, so I think we kind of need to start our engines here. I really like all 4 cards in their hand. I love Samut because it's going to become a nice attacker when the other one, right with the other one when it comes down. Embereth is great when we start making tokens. I'm really not entirely sure what to pick here. I guess I'll pitch the Bunnies, even though I really like it. Maybe we can hit into something better, and we get Adeline, which should arguably make better tokens than the Bunnies, Temp with the Bunnies, because we get them turn over turn. So here on turn 6, right, we could play Samut and get Samut in attacking since it has haste, almost inevitably growing our speed up, because a 4/5 with First Strike is doesn't have trample. So I guess there is the world where it couldn't, but I'll play the Magical Christmas Land that it does, right? So we'll come back to our turn. Rocking with 7 mana. I mean, my thought is just Adeline plus the Embereth. Now we're almost guaranteed to get a speed this turn with 3 humans attacking everybody. We become the Monarch, so we're going to draw on our end step. Again, those humans are 4/1s, so they probably do either take something out or get in for big damage. And then, so the beginning of our upkeep, if we're still the Monarch, we make a Knight, and then dome everybody for X, where X is the number of creatures we control. So, if we see the Knight, it's not on the list. We'll just call it a human Knight, I guess. Interesting. I'm not sure why. And if we are the Monarch, we dome everybody for 6. Otherwise, we just got a Knight, which is in my opinion, fine, because we're going to be max speed this turn. We can play Samut, and then, right, our spells are costing 3 less right now. I've got 3 mana, so I can actually, I can secure for secure for 5 if I want to make, secure for 4 into X, or I could make 4 1/1s if I want to, and they would come in with haste because of Samut, right, and take a big attack this turn. Or I can just leave the secure the waste up to do it once I am at max speed. But I mean, take the attacks again. These come in as 4/1s, and then maybe we damage somebody on our turn. I would secure before my turn on the last person's turn. And then, of course, if we're the Monarch, even better, right? Because then it domes for damage. Otherwise, we're at max speed, and we're just putting these 4/1s into our opponents, and it's just going to hurt, right? Nobody's going to have enough on turn 5 or 6 to really block a bunch of 4/1s. Again, little magical Christmas Land, because we managed to get Adeline and all that kind of things, which is why I think the deck's not a 4, right? But I think this deck is really fun. I've said it before about Naya Tokens decks, and I'll say it again. If Jetmir didn't exist, I think a deck like this would be really fun. But I don't know that Samut goes in Jetmir, but I'm very intrigued to see what Samut could do. Because Samut needs that start your engines to get started. I mean, that's what we have the cards for. I think it'd be a little too slow in something like Jetmir. But I think Samut's a really fun option to get your start going, getting aggressive and dealing damage. Well, let me know what you think of Samut down in the comment section below, and I